Welcome to Tom Rhodes Radio Smart Camp, and greetings from Mongolia, from Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia, the capital. I just had one of the greatest shows of my life last night at the UB Comedy Club. UB is short for Ulaanbaatar. That's what people from here call Ulaanbaatar. They call it UB City. And I'll tell you more about the show in a minute. I'm having coffee and I don't have too much time. I wanted to record. Of course, I should have put this out a few days ago, but I've been completely slammed since I got to Mongolia doing one activity after another, and I have not been able to sit down until now to record this for you. Let me have another sip of my morning coffee. Excuse me. All I can say is hooray for Mongolia. And if you listened to my previous episode, Genghis Khan, you know that the ancient Mongolians gave the world the word hooray. Mongolians would cheer hooray. And the Europeans took that and it spread and entered into the English language. I'm fascinated by Genghis Khan. I'm fascinated by ancient Mongolians, and I'm fascinated by modern Mongolians, which is why I came back. I originally came to Mongolia because of Genghis Khan, and then I returned because of the Mongolian comedians that I fell in love with in the comedy scene here. So I'll tell you more about that in a minute. Are you missing my fabulous opening number, the intro song, and that rant that I recorded? Jesus, what was it? Almost 9 years ago when I recorded. I'll take you to Machu Picchu. I'll take you to the cliffs of whatever, Vietnam, and the swamps of Florida, and the many theaters and comedy clubs, and the fascinating people that I come into contact with in my life as a stand-up comedian. I have no intro on this episode because Ashna and I were contacted by Libsyn, the platform that hosts podcasts, and we were going to be penalized for having copywritten songs in our podcast. So unfortunately, no longer will I play a song that I've selected at the end of each episode. Bummer. And then, unfortunately, we had to lose our intro song. So, if there's anybody listening to this, if my words reach your ears, and you are a musician, or you know a musician, we desperately need an intro song now. My gorgeous genius wife, Ashna, unfortunately, today, she's got like 24 hours to remove all these songs from how many episodes have I recorded? 260. So my fabulous, brilliant wife, unfortunately, has to spend the next 24 hours chopping off all of these songs from the podcast and all of these intros. So the old episodes still exist on YouTube if you want to go there and you missed that intro. But I'm going to have to re-record that intro, and I need a song for my my theme song. So if you're a musician, you know a musician. The song that I used forever, it was from this album called Florida Funk, and it was funk songs from 1968 to 1973 or 75, and it was a song by a band called Ocean Liners, and the song was called Cutting Room, and it just had this really poppin', pimp, 70s funk. And I've said forever and ever that if you're ever depressed or sad, put on some 70s funk, because it's almost impossible to be sad while you're listening to 70s funk. It just has this magic, shamanistic, uplifting quality to it. So I would love some kind of 70s funk sounding theme song. So please, help. I need it. Okay, so let's talk about Mongolia. And, I loved it when I was here in October. And then this time is even better. Okay, first of all, let me tell you about the flight that I had here. Let me have a sip of coffee. I flew into Shanghai from LA. I had like 8 hours to sleep, and then I took a plane to Seoul, Korea. And then from Seoul to Ulaanbaatar, it was, Jesus, it was over 24 hours of flying. It was one of the most brutal flying experiences or journeys I've ever had. And on the flight from Seoul, I sat next to this really sweet Mongolian kid. Sorry about that. And he was telling me he had just worked in Korea for a month. And I'm talking to him, and I said, I hope you made some money while you were in Korea. And he said, oh, no, I didn't make any money. I said, how's that possible? How can you work for a month and not make any money? He goes, well, I've never traveled, and I wanted to see Korea. So I worked for a month to pay for the plane ticket that whatever factory owner that he worked for bought him a plane ticket, a round trip ticket, and then he worked in this factory for a month. And then he was flying back home. And I just think that's astounding. And he told me that his little brother goes to university in Los Angeles and his sister lives in Chicago. And he said, oh, my mom just went to visit my brother in Los Angeles. And he pulls out his phone and he's showing me pictures. And the pictures are of his mom and his brother at the Grove in Los Angeles. And I'm like, hey, I go, dude, I live like right next to there. And it's funny, Ashin and I walk through there with our groceries. We'll go buy groceries, and then we walk through there on the way home and stuff. And so that was really interesting. And, you know, this kid's dreaming of going to Los Angeles one day. And that's my neighborhood where he's showing me these pictures. And, you know, you gotta count your blessings in life. But he told me, it was really interesting. He told me that his sister, when she came home to Mongolia, she brought him an American flag. And he put it up on his wall over his bed. And he said that that's his motivation in life. When he wakes up, the first thing he sees is the American flag. And it makes him want to work hard so that one day he can go to Los Angeles and the United States. So I really loved this guy. And I bought him I got him tickets to my show last night. And so he came to the show, and as a thank you gift, he gave me a Genghis Khan chess set. And I was in some souvenir shop yesterday, and I almost bought one, and I'm glad I didn't. So I'm just I've been given so many gifts and been shown so much hospitality since I got here. It's overwhelming how generous and beautiful Mongolian people are. So my friend Zolo, who's one of the local Mongolian comedians, he picks me up with Bata. Bata is one of the founders of the UB Comedy Club. Oh shit, there's a phone call. Hold on. Hello? Hi. Oh, yes, of course. Hi, Saki. How are you? Great. No, not at all. Oh, my God, thank you. I don't think I'll need it that late, but I really appreciate you doing that for me. No, I'm going to be picked up at 1 o'clock, so I'll leave then. I'll be all packed up and ready to go then. Oh yeah, I would love that. That would be great. Are you can I? I'm actually recording a podcast right now, so I'll be finished in maybe 45, 50 minutes. That's perfect. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so wow, that was nice. Saki, I'm staying at the Shangri-La Hotel in Ulaanbaatar, And as you know, that story about I stayed at the Shangri-La Hotel in Hong Kong, and I back years ago when I was partying, and I shit the bed. So all these employees from the Shangri-La Hotel came to the hotel last night, and or came to my show last night. And it was funny. They came up to me after the show and they said, "Please don't shit our bed while you stay here." So I go, "You guys really are? You guys work at the Shangri-La?" Apparently, they're sponsoring me and got the like whatever. The rooms are comped, or I'm guessing. I'm not sure. So I said, of course, you got to take advantage of a situation. And they're like, "Oh my God, we love the show and we work at the Shangri-La." And I go, "Really? Can I have a late checkout?" So that was it. So she was just calling to confirm that I had a late checkout. She got it for 4 p.m., but I'm only needing it until 1 p.m. So yeah, that's it. Just so much generosity. People have been so kind. So I arrived in Ulaanbaatar, and Bata and Zolo pick me up, and we drive to the Shangri-La Hotel, and they said that the local newspaper wants to interview you. It's not the local; it's the national newspaper of Mongolia, and the entertainment writer woman. I had time to. I landed. I needed to take a shower, and then I go downstairs and have coffee with the entertainment writer, and there's a photographer with her. And Zolo translated because she could understand English, but she couldn't speak it. So on her arm, she had tattooed the word road, R-H-O-D-E. I'm sorry, R-H-O-D-E. My name without the S. And of course, I shit in my pants, and I'm pointing at her arm, and I go, "You are the first journalist interviewing me who went to the trouble of getting my name tattooed on your arm." So as it turns out, she is obsessed with Greek mythology, the way I'm obsessed with. I have my own historical obsessions, like Genghis Khan and whatnot. So she told me. She said, "Don't you know where this comes from?" And I said, "The island of Rhodes." And she said, "Well, yeah, but Poseidon, the god of the sea," now I'm going to show you I'm an idiot. I don't know much about Greek mythology. It was his daughter. It was Poseidon's daughter was named Rhodes. And in, I guess, however you drop the S, however it worked out. So that was her favorite character from Greek mythology. So we had this really great long interview, and I told her about, she's asking me really great questions like, when did you know you were funny? And I told her about my mother and father used to argue all the time, and I knew that if I could make them laugh, they would stop arguing for a minute. And there was this story, and it made it into the interview, where my Aunt Martha was dying in the hospital, and we went to visit, and there was really some bad tension between my mom and my dad, and they had been arguing all day, and we're leaving the hospital, and they're back arguing again. And a white Rolls Royce drove down the street in front of the hospital, and I ran after the Rolls Royce, waving my arms, yelling, "Adopt me, adopt me, adopt me." And I was 10 years old, and that's when I knew I was funny. I think I knew I was funny before that. When you're a kid and you're trying to be cute and silly and whatnot. But I remember purposefully having that idea and doing it so my mom and dad would relax for a minute. So that was pretty awesome, and had this big in-depth interview. And I told the woman that I'm obsessed with used books and vinyl records, and she said, "You need to meet Satsu. He's the most famous political cartoonist from Mongolia, and what's his, here I'm looking at his, Satso, Satso, that's the guy's name. So he's like the most famous political cartoonist of Mongolia. And she said he's also at his house. It's full of vinyl records and used books. And she goes, "You should meet that guy while you're here." So so what? How did it? I slept. I was exhausted that night after the interview. Had some great Mongolian food. It's just, I've said it before. Mongolian food is meat on top of meat with a side order of meat. It's just incredible. So the next morning, Bata and Zolo pick me up. I just love the names here. And I love these guys. They're incredible. So she set up a meeting with Satso when for when we came back from the countryside. So I wanted to sleep in a gur. For some reason, Americans think they're called yurts, but they call them gurs. So we drive 2 hours out into the countryside, and there's the world's largest Genghis Khan statue. So we stop there and we go there again. I took beautiful pictures there the last time I was here. And this time now it's summer. And there was lots of tourists there. And on the top of you can go up on top of the horse's head. Genghis Khan is riding a horse. And it was still great. And I was happy to go back and bought a ceramic statue of the thing for what, $20? Everything's so cheap here. And so we continue on driving into the country, and on the side of the road, and not far from where the world's largest Genghis Khan statue, there's a guy on the side of the road, and he's got camels, and you can ride the camels. And he also had 3 eagles on these wooden stands. I hope you've seen that movie, The Eagle Huntress. A lot of people contacted me and told me I should watch this movie after the last time I was here, when I was raving about Mongolia. It's about, they actually do eagle hunting here. And the movie is about this girl, young girl, who wants to be an eagle hunter. And it's a documentary. It's a brilliant film. So he had 3 eagles, and then he had a massive vulture. And I took some great photos where I was holding this vulture. And Jesus, man, this thing might have been like 50 pounds. Maybe I'd say 40, 50 pounds. It's a big creature. And then at one point, it's like its feet are tied to a rope to the wooden stand. And it jumps it tries to jump off my hand. And the guy said, "Hold it tight. I'm holding the rope." And Jesus, man, this thing was so strong, and its wingspan was massive. And it startled the living shit out of me when it jumped up and tried to fly away. And so, I mean, I got to hold an actual vulture. And then also the guy he's selling knickknacks and kind of antique artifacts. And you could put on an ancient Mongolian warrior's outfit and shoot bows and arrows at a target, which was like a skin on a stand. And the first shot, I hit the motherfucker. It was completely dumb luck. The first one I hit it, and I haven't shot a bow and arrow in, I don't know, 20, 25 years. But that was pretty cool, and my Mongolian comedian friends were very impressed. And then I missed the next 2 and walked away from it. So then we continue onward. We get, and the roads here are it's like it's 2-lane roads, and the further you go out into the country, it's potholes and stuff. And then we get off the main road, and we just get on this dirt road, which is just 2 dirt tire paths, and we're going and just we're like a half hour out into this I don't want to say wilderness because there's no trees. It kind of, the Mongolian countryside, it reminds me of Montana, some of it. And there's horses, every wild horses running around. And now, see, if I still could play music at the end of my song, I would probably play the Rolling Stones' "Wild Horses." But you know that song, so we don't need to. So there's like, and it's hot. It's August. I mean, not that hot. It's like 70 degrees in the daytime, and it's in the 50s at night, which is a little chilly for me. So there's like this massive puddle of water, and there's like 10 horses in it. And the Bata's just driving. And I'm like, whoa, 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 stop, 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 stop. He's like, what? I go, I need to take a photo of this. And, why wouldn't you stop? There's like the most beautiful National Geographic photo you've ever seen in your life. And I hope you've seen it. I posted it on Instagram. And there's clouds and there's the Mongolian mountains and just beautiful, beautiful shots of it was. I think that moment alone was worth coming here, and then we were kind of lost after that. So then we stopped. There's Gurs. These are a nomadic people, and that's what I think I love about Mongolians. I think maybe that's why I like Mongolians so much, is because I feel very at home with nomadic people. So these people move around according to the weather, and we stopped, and there's some guy. He had like kind of two poles and a rope, and these two horses are tied. It looked like a parking spot for horses. This young kid, we pull up next to it, and then he pointed for us to go this other direction, and then we kind of got lost again, and then had to pull up to some other gur and ask somebody else. And that's the difference. Like in Montana, if you pulled up to a country stranger's house to ask for directions, you'd get shot driving up the driveway. Here they go, oh yeah, you just go down to the third rock and take a right. So we went to the 13th century, this 13th century campsite of Genghis Khan. And there are gurs. It's kind of like a gur hotel, but there's no toilets. There's like one toilet, but you got to walk to it. And the gurs are set up like, I think maybe there was 8 of them or 10 of them. And then there's like a main gur in the middle where you would have meals and stuff. And so we go there and we check in. Oh, and then they had ancient Mongolian costumes and big fur coats, and you could take pictures in the main room. And I took this beautiful photo, and Zolo and Bata are on either side of me in like kind of the warrior's outfit, and I've got the Genghis Khan outfit on. I'm sure that'll be the photo that I use to promote this episode, and I'll probably use it for an album cover or something. So we put our luggage, we get there, we eat more meat, and then Zolo had been there before, and there was like a shaman's camp, like about a half mile from there. So we drive over to there, and it was this tree. It looked dead, but they said it was still alive, and all these ribbons were tied to these poles that were kind of like a triangle up around it, and then there were all these. There's no trees anywhere in sight. So I don't know where these tree trunks came from, but the trees were all like carved in spikes, and it was in a round. You could see it was a spiritual place, and it's been this shaman spiritual place for since the 1200s, when Genghis Khan and these guys were camping out there in the summer. The ancient Mongolians loved winter, because their arrows were more accurate. They could roll over the frozen rivers. They could roll over the frozen moats. And then in summer, they would come back to Mongolia after, defeating and crushing people. And then they'd let the animals fatten up and graze. So this was one of their main encampments. And so around the shaman, you could see this. It was like a ceremonial place. and you could feel something there, this presence. So then there were like kind of five little gers on the side, and there was a woman there who greeted us and said that those were, so there's like 11 provinces of Mongolia or states or something. So those were the different shamans from different areas, like their locker room, I guess, kind of. They had their shaman stuff in these things. So me and Zolo and Bata walk into the first one, and I felt this kind of heaviness. And I don't know if I've ever told this story. There was one time where I was in New Orleans, back when I was drinking. I was there. I went there like I wanted to spend a New Year's Eve in New Orleans. I went there. I was on my way to Houston, and I was dating Anique, the Dutch girl, and we had drank all night and partied, and she had fallen asleep in the hotel, and I wanted to go out and stroll around New Orleans. I hadn't been there in years, and there was a voodoo shop, and I was drunk, so maybe I don't know if I was imagining this, but I remember it. I took a step into this voodoo shop, and it felt like a furnace on my face. There was no fire in there, but I just felt this overwhelming heat. And I had to shut my eyes and turn my head and turned away, and I walked straight out of there, back out into the December freezing temperatures. But I'll never forget that, and I don't know how many people I've ever told that to. So when we stepped into that first gur, it wasn't a furnace heat that I felt. Actually, it was kind of like a cold darkness. But I felt like I didn't belong there. And so I stepped in and looked for a second, and those guys are looking at things. And then I just felt the urge to get the fuck out of there. So I got out of there. And then they go, yeah, they're going on to gur number 2, shaman gur number 2. And they go, hey, man, come on. And I'm like, no, I've had enough of that. And then some other girl, not the one that met us. So there's like a gur where they lived right when you first pull up to that shaman's camp. And there was a little baby the woman was carrying. And then this second woman comes out, and she was very attractive, mid-20s. I don't know, it's hard to tell. Maybe she was 30. And she said, she goes, would you like a tour? And those guys had already looked in all of them. I took pictures and stuff. And I'm not going to post the pictures of that shaman's camp because there's, something sacred about it. And I feel like you should respect other beliefs. And I don't know. It's weird. I would post shit from a Catholic church or something, but I don't know. I don't think that's anybody's business to post those pictures. So this girl offers to give us this tour and explain to us about the stuff that's in the shaman locker room, gurs, however you would call it. So then we go back into gur number 1, and that cold darkness was gone. I guess because this female shaman had invited us in there. And then she's pointing out the different artifacts and explaining this and that. And then we went through all 5 of them. And then, it was getting dark now. And then it was really cool to have it all explained to us. And then we go back to after that, they wanted me to try fermented mare's milk. This was the Mongolians loved this stuff. Ancient Mongolians loved it, and Genghis Khan loved it. So, shaman girl tells them, "Oh yeah, over the ridge, she's explaining in Mongolian. I love the sound of the Mongolian language. It's unlike anything I've ever heard before." And so we go off in search of fermented mare's milk. And we go over this ridge, and now it's dark, and fortunately he had like a Ford Expedition or Explorer, I forget, a big American vehicle, and there's no roads. It's like a dirt road, and then grasslands. And it's fucking dark. And somehow we find this gur, and there were yaks. What an interesting, beautiful animal a yak is. And then there was 2 gurs and a motorcycle, and ate yaks, and they were around some big boulders, and we just pull up. Again, if you were in the rural, dark countryside of America and just randomly pulled up somewhere, you'd be murdered. So the guy, the mare's milk fermenter, said that it's not ready yet. It won't be ready until the morning. And so we leave. And then we're driving back, and there's no dirt road. We're just driving on grass. And I'm like thinking, okay, well, I'm in, rural Mongolia, and it's dark, and there's no road, and we're just driving. And then we got to some marshy area, and then he had to put on the four-wheel drive and back out of there. And then, oh, I think it's over this way. And we go over some hill, and we are fucking lost in the Mongolian countryside. And it is dark, baby. And somehow, just driving around and taking different turns, and then we ended up finding the dirt path again, and then drove that for another 2 or 3 miles until we saw a fork in the road, and then he went somewhere, and then that wasn't the right way. Anyway, it took a while to get back, but somehow I thought that was really interesting, just randomly be driving around, not even on a road. And Bata didn't even seem to be concerned about it. Oh yeah, we'll find our way back. So then we get back to our 13th century encampment with the gurs set up, and it was cold, and they lit fires in each of our gur, like with coal and wood, and warmed them up. And I've been kind of jet lagged since I've got here. First day I woke up at 5:30 a.m. Second day was 6 a.m. And then so I've been getting tired at like 9:30, 10 p.m. You're like conking out. So I sat on the front steps of my gur with the guys, and just all these stars and the crescent moon in the distance. And there's been certain moments that I've had while traveling. Like I remember in Peru, like when I went to the Nazca Lines and I was in the desert, and the stars looked so close you could jump up and grab them, and just the dark night and all the stars, and you're way out in one of the most remote places in the world. So I kind of had that feeling in rural, remote Mongolia, and just the darkness of the mountains and all the stars and the moon, and it was just such a nice, peaceful feeling. And like, again, another moment where it made that 3-hour, 3-journey flight. Oh, that's the thing I forgot to mention. I think there was a phone call. The kid on the flight told me that flight was his second flight in his lifetime. And I said, wow, you're not going to believe this. This is my third flight in the last 24 hours. That's what started our conversation. So we're having this beautiful, talking to Zolo and Bata under the stars, and until I got tired. And they have these crescent-shaped beds. And the shaman girl said that if you sleep on those, it's good for your circulation, and your blood will flow, and blah-diddy-blah. So they had a crescent-shaped thing in my gur, and slept with the nice, warm, cozy fire happening. And then, I'm thinking, as I'm falling asleep, I'm thinking, oh, I hope a spark doesn't set this wooden thing. I don't even know what the material is that makes the outer part of a gur. But surely hope I'm not the one that burns to death. But they've been doing this for however many centuries. And actually what woke me up, I woke up at 6 a.m. It was freezing. The fire had fucking long burned out, and now it was cold. So I woke up at 6 a.m. and it's freezing, and I'm lying there for a second. And my first thought was, the sun is coming up. So I walked out. I threw my pants on, and I ran out, and I watched the sun come up over the mountain. And this was even more spectacular than sitting out under all these beautiful stars at night. And it was so beautiful there, and the mountains and the greenness, not a tree in sight. And there were 2 horses grazing above the little gur encampment. and I took some very nice photos. And then I hiked all the way up to the top of the mountain ridge and took some nice photos of the encampment and all the vast distance of this Mongolian countryside. And you know, it's not even 7 a.m. and I've already you just peaked. So that was wonderful. It was just one of the most magic moments of my traveling life is watching that sun come up, and just kind of, it wasn't even dewy grass. It was just, man, and kind of desert flowers, wildflowers I've never seen before. It was truly beautiful. So once the guys wake up and we go to we had, they said we could eat in the main house or they could bring it to us. So they brought us the breakfast. And are you ready for this? What the breakfast was? Meat soup. It was this kind of mushy porridge with chunks of meat in it, like kind of sausage meat. It was interesting. So everything is meat. And we were up and out. I think we left at 7:30, 8. I think maybe 8 a.m. we left. And it's what? Yeah, we had to be at the political cartoonist at his house at 11. So yeah, so we drove. We got back to the hotel. Actually, we got there a little late because I was insistent that I needed a shower. You know, when you, after like 24 hours of flying or a night sleeping in a gur and waking up freezing, there's nothing like coming back to the Shangri-La Hotel in Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia, and having a nice long hot shower and putting on fresh socks and underwear. That's a bounce in your step move. So got ready. We rush over to Satso's house, and this guy, the political cartoonist, it was interesting. Like Zolo and Bata, this was like they were over the moon. They were like, wow, because of Tom Rhodes, we get to go meet Satso. It was like if Ashna and I were going to go meet Alan Dubaton. You know, this is like they grew up with this guy's cartoons, and this guy was so cool, man. We talked records, we talked politics. He showed us books. Oh, also, he's a stamp collector. I collect stamps. I don't collect rare stamps. I just buy stamps when I go to different countries. I'll try and pop into a post office and look at what beautiful stamps they have. It's like a dorky thing about me. I don't know if I've mentioned this before. Mongolia makes the most beautiful stamps on the planet Earth. They do World Cup stamps. They've done Muhammad Ali stamps. They've done the greatest events of human history stamps. Google Mongolian stamps if you don't know anything about this. And so this guy was also a stamp collector. So I got to really nerd out with the most famous political cartoonist of Mongolia about stamps. He pulled out all the stamp books, and I said, wow, no less than 9,000 times. So, okay, so that was that. After, what else happened? Give me a minute to sip on my coffee, yeah. Okie dokie. Wild horses couldn't drag me away. Yeah, so the food here, there's this, they do this bucket of meat thing, which I love. Okay, I had to look at my notes there for a second. A big reason that I came back, Jesus, I don't have too much time. I gotta finish packing up. I want to think of, I'm doing this. My next album is going to be around the world, and every track is going to be a different city around the world. And another reason I wanted to come back was when I was here in October, I screwed up the wording of this one joke. So my opening in Mongolia, I was very proud of it. I wrote all these jokes for Mongolia, but I said, apparently everyone in the world is somehow related to Genghis Khan. So I'm just here to visit family. Hello, cousins. And I read, before I came to Mongolia, I read the biography of Genghis Khan. And apparently, under the rule of Genghis Khan, no individual was ever held responsible for a mistake or an error. It was the community's fault as a whole. So if this show doesn't go well, it's all of our fault. And then the joke that I screwed up was from reading Genghis Khan's biography, I learned that as a comedian performing in Mongolia, you never give up on a joke, never give up on a story. And if that doesn't work, you can always put aristocrats or noblemen into catapults and shoot them against the palace walls, because that never fails to make the Mongolians laugh. So when I was here in October, I said you could put peasants in the catapults and shoot them against the palace walls. But that's not what Genghis Khan and the ancient Mongolians did. They put the aristocrats and the noblemen. They loved killing people of high rank. And Genghis Khan did not recognize anyone nobility or aristocrats or the highest people of the religious orders, which is, I think, a really cool thing about him. And I said it on stage last night. I think Genghis Khan is probably one of the most underrated comedians of all time, because when he would go into conquer an area, he would say, I am the wrath of God. If you had not displeased him, he would not have sent me here to destroy you. Hilarious. And then there was another incident where Genghis Khan they had conquered some Muslim country, and the Mongolian warriors were about to go into a mosque. And the imams, the religious leaders, said, no, you can't go in there. That is a house, that's the house of God. And Genghis Khan said, my God lives on all of the earth, in all of the sky, and in all of the sea. It's funny that your God lives in a little house. That's pretty fucking funny. What a great laugh the Mongolians must have had when they conquered places. I said this on stage last night. I just want to go over a couple things before I have to wrap this up. But the ancient Genghis Khan and the ancient Mongolians gave us pants before they conquered Europe and reached all the way to Europe. Europeans wore robes, but the Mongolians were horse people, and they wore pants, and that's how pants were introduced to the world. So thank you, Mongolia and Genghis Khan. Before, if it wasn't for them, we'd be wearing robes, and our balls would be flopping around, and our dicks without the nice, comfortable, snug fit of some pants. And the ancient Mongolians gave the world ice cream. The daily food ration of the ancient Mongolian soldier was a dairy curd, and they would keep it under their saddles, and the constant pounding and the freezing temperatures produced something not unlike ice cream. And then the joke that I made on stage last night, then somebody got the idea to throw in some vanilla extract or pistachio or salted caramel, and voila, ice cream. And then also my favorite word in the English language is hooray. And the ancient Mongolians, we get that from them. They would end prayers or celebrations by yelling hooray, and then that spread to Europe. And that is my favorite word in the English language. Okay, Mongolian people are beautiful. I think they look like the people from Avatar without the blue. I just remembered a story I wanted to tell you. So Bata, one of the founders of UB Comedy Club, and I'm very proud to be a part of their history here now. And one day I hope to come back. And they've got my picture on the wall. They filmed my show for me last night and did it for free. Bata's mom is a dentist, and they've heard me talking about Mongolia on different podcasts, Joey Diaz and Bert Kreischer, and they listen to my podcast I did the last time I was here, and they're calling me a great ambassador of Mongolia. So his mother's a dentist, and she offered to give me a free checkup and a free cleaning. So after the days have just gone by so quick here. So yesterday, I went to her office, and she did a free cleaning for me. And, I don't treat my teeth very well. I probably brush them like I hate them, which is, you should be nicer to your teeth. But I needed a cleaning, and she did it. And then that was like, an hour, hour and a half, maybe. No, like an hour. And then after we talked some more, and she offered to give me a free whitening. So I did it like 10 years ago, and it cost $800. So, and it didn't even whiten my teeth when I did it 10 years ago, because my teeth were so fucking foul, I guess, and age and cigarettes and red wine and coffee, everything that I was doing to myself 10 years ago. So when I paid $800, I didn't see much of a difference. So she gave me a free whitening thing. And that was an hour and a half sitting there. And so I was total in the chair, in the dentist, Batu's mom, for 2.5 hours. That's a long time sitting in a dentist chair with your mouth open. But I was like, oh, this is a really great gift. And I personally can't afford $1,000 to get my teeth whitened. That's a lot of money, And and I live in the land of vanity and looks and show business of Los Angeles. It was just a really beautiful gift, and the people here just keep doing nice, beautiful things for me. And last night the show was sold out, and just there's so many beautiful Mongolians, man. I'd say it was 80% Mongolian, 20% some expats, and all my Mongolian jokes worked, and I did an hour and 9 minutes, crushed it, just absolutely crushed it, and I think it was one of the highlights of my life as a oh yeah, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting. After the dentist, then I went to the club, and I did a 2-hour master class with the local Mongolian comedians. I sat there and answered all their questions, and I told them everything about, starting out, and the thing that stands out, there was one female comedian, and people have written nasty shit about her online, and I told her it's even harder to be a female comedian, and people will write evil shit about you. Don't look at that shit. Stay away from it. Remember that some loser sitting in the middle of nowhere writing about you and their opinion of you is meaningless. The only thing that matters is your opinion of yourself, and stay confident in yourself. And I said the greatest advice I can give you as a young comedians is to be nice to yourself. Give yourself a break. Love yourself. Because, everybody does this, but comedians starting out and comedians in general do this, where you're always hard on yourself. You could have a great set, and then you're unhappy because 2 things didn't work, or you bomb and you're humiliated and you have failures in the first 10 years, and you spend like a week feeling like a turd, just like a worthless turd. And I said, don't do that to yourself. Remember, what you're doing is something special, and not many people are brave enough to get on that stage and do it. So just the fact that you're brave enough to get up there and express your ideas, give yourself credit and love yourself for that. And that girl, I hugged her afterwards, and just I told her, you have to remember it's even harder as a female, because people will write about your looks and your hair and your makeup, and why would a woman talk about that? It's so hard as a comedian, but it's even harder as a female. And so that was great. And then they all came to the show. The show could not have gone better. And then I got really lucky that at the end, when I was asking for people from different countries, there was a woman from France there, and I got out all my stories about the almost drowning in Thailand. I talked about the relationship I had with Natalie, and then moving to Amsterdam, and my Amsterdam bike wreck, and almost drowning in Thailand. So when I finished the show, afterwards I came back out because the Bata and Zola wanted to take a picture on stage. It was immediately after they ended the show. And then all these people lined up to take photos with me. And I stood there for an hour. It was, I think the room holds 200, 180. I definitely took a picture with probably 90 or 100 people last night. And it was great. I was like, I live for that. And just to know that I made so many people happy last night, and just how tough it is as a comedian sometimes, and the shit that you have to go through, and then like to have a moment like that where you can just see that you made so many people happy. And then there was some woman who came up to me, and she said she started crying while she was watching my show because I had talked about all these heartbreaks that I had, and she knew that I was sincere and I was telling the truth. And she took a picture. She said, I laughed so much tonight, but I also cried, and it was so personal and beautiful, the stories that you shared. And fuck, I'm getting choked up just talking about it. It just to have a performance like that and know that you touched people so deeply. I'm absolutely in love with Mongolia and the people of Mongolia. And I'm proud to be a part of the history of the UB Comedy Club. And it's really a magical place. I hope more foreigner, American, English, Irish, whoever, I hope all the great comedians of the world will start making the trip here, because it's definitely worth it. And it's just, it's National Geographic beautiful in some places, and rarely ever anywhere in the world will you meet people as beautiful and as generous as the people of Mongolia. And I have to say that I think they're very attractive people. So the men and the women, they're just they're just very highly lovable, and they're even at their most beautiful when they're screaming their heads off with laughter. So I'm going to end this podcast. I got to jump in the shower. I got to finish packing. Here's the book that I read, and I brought it back with me, is the Jack Weatherford book. I highly recommend this book. It's called Genghis Khan and the Making of the Modern World. And I just want to read you a couple things. Mongol law, as codified by Genghis Khan, recognized group responsibility and group guilt. The solitary individual had no legal existence outside the context of the family and the larger units to which it belonged. Therefore, the family carried the responsibility of ensuring the correct behavior of its members. A crime by one could bring punishment to all. Similarly, a tribe or a squad of soldiers bore the same liability for one another's actions, and thereby the entire nation. Not just the army or just the civil administration bore responsibility for upholding and enforcing the law. To be a just Mongol, one had to live in a just community. Oh yeah, all that Donald Trump shit's interesting. I watched that yesterday for a minute. Okay. Warriors everywhere have been taught to die for their leader. Okay, this is great. Warriors everywhere have been taught to die for their leader, but Genghis Khan never asked his men to die for him. Above all else, he waged war with this strategic purpose in mind, to preserve Mongol life. Unlike other generals and emperors in history, who easily ordered hundreds of thousands of soldiers to their death, Genghis Khan would never willingly sacrifice a single one. The most important rules that he created for his army concerned the loss of soldiers. On and off the battlefield, the Mongol warrior was forbidden to speak of death, injury, or defeat. Just to think of it might make it happen. Even mentioning the name of a fallen comrade or other dead warrior constituted a serious taboo. Every Mongol soldier had to live his life as a warrior with the assumption that he was immortal, that no one could defeat him or harm him, that nothing could kill him. At the last moment of life, when all had failed and no hope remained, the Mongol warrior was supposed to look upward and beckon his fate by calling out the name of the eternal blue sky as his final earthly words. In fighting on the steppe, the nomads left the corpses of fallen soldiers and their possessions on the field to be disposed of by animals and to decompose naturally. Wow. Keep that in your brain, man. Keep that Mongol warrior attitude. Whatever you're doing in your life, and especially if you're a comedian listening to this. The most important rules that he created for his army concerned the loss of soldiers. On and off the battlefield, the Mongol warrior was forbidden to speak of death, injury, or defeat. Just to think of it might make it happen. Even mentioning the name of a fallen comrade or other dead warrior constituted a serious taboo. Every Mongol soldier had to live his life as a warrior with the assumption that he was immortal, that no one could defeat him or harm him, that nothing could kill him. Fucking love that. Okay, imagine yourself to be immortal. Go out there and kick ass in your world. I got to jump in the shower and drop back this to my smoochie so she can air it and put this up. And I love you guys very much. I hope you enjoyed this adventure that I've had in Mongolia. And all I can say is hooray! Hooray for Mongolia. And hooray for the listeners of Tom Rhodes Radio Smart Camp. Shalom, amigos y amigas, and long may you run, my friends. Mwah.